Hi, Libby.
Hi, Tina.
This is our first live show, and it's so exciting.
It is.
You know.
It's really exciting.
Yeah,
It's
sure,
very
Libby.
exciting. I'm trying to really get worked up about it.
All right. Before we get going, I just love those workshop meetings that
Do
the
you?
selectmen have. Yeah, I find them interesting because you get a sense of who the selectman
You do,
is
and you know where they're
based
coming
on
from.
their opinion
Yep.
on certain. That's because that's what they're all about.
Yes,
right?
that's
Explain
exactly
those
what they're all
for
about. Well,
me.
the workshops are meant to be, we lovingly call them the all talk, no action meetings. But really, what they're meant to do is cover 1 to 2 to 3, in last night's case, 4 topics, where the board can have really just a free discussion amongst each other, not necessarily with the public, unless they invite that, about particular things. Not necessarily things that require an immediate action, but things that they really need to have some good open discussion about without worrying about having to move quickly on to the next agenda item. So that's what it's meant to do. And they did have some good discussion on pretty much every item last night.
So the very first one.
Yes.
What was that? How did the whole meeting start? What was that first issue?
The very
that
first
started?
issue had to do with Mass General Law, Chapter 40C, and the HDC, Historic District Commission. Cities and towns under Mass law are allowed to adopt 40C in their towns, requires a town meeting vote, which enables them to establish a historic district commission. Now, in towns where there already is one, unless they've adopted it sort of recently under 40C, they've probably adopted it through special legislation in the past, as we have. And I think there's a bit of some thinking by some people that our HDC Act has been amended so many times that it might be time for something of an overhaul, and maybe we should look at simply operating ourselves under the provisions of Chapter 40C. But there is a process that it requires, one of which is a committee established specifically to review this and bring it to town meeting. And there's been that sort of, but the board, I think, would like there to be more open public discussion about it. And so that was what that discussion was. That sort of morphed into a discussion about staffing of HDC meetings, which I won't even go into. You can watch the tape on that one. But the board felt it's a little problematic right now because the HDC has evidently determined that it doesn't wish to have professional staff at its meetings. There is administrative staff there to take the minutes and jot down all the votes so that the follow-up can be appropriately processed the next day or whenever they process it. But it was a bit controversial, I would say.
Yeah, I still didn't understand it totally about.
Well, nobody really wanted to come right out and say exactly what the problem is. But
is the problem the dynamic at the?
There's a dynamic. That's a good way to put it. Yes,
Yeah.
There's a dynamic there that's difficult.
And it continues to be a problem. But historic district stuff. How are you going to make it easy? I mean, it seems like a difficult thing to do anyway.
Well, it is. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about specifically, renovation or a move off or a window replacement. And one of the board members was saying, maybe the staff could do more staff approvals of sort of routine types of things. I think there's some of that goes on, but maybe there could be a little bit more of it. Anyway. So we had that discussion, and then we talked about any other 2015 annual town meeting warrant articles. Nobody really, I don't think we had any discussion about any. We did have a discussion about Article 42, which has to do with coastal erosion liability waiver. It's a zoning amendment and a potential home rule petition. The idea is that if you build a new structure within 300 feet of what's defined in the zoning bylaw as shorefront land, then you are required to sign this is the proposal, you are required to sign a liability waiver so that if your house ever erodes away, the land erodes away and your house goes in, that you can't sue the town after that. So they got into a discussion about why is this needed. Now we had already had some discussion about it prior to the board, as a board-sponsored article, trying to put it in. But most recently, the planning board had a discussion about it because it's a zoning article. Planning board makes motions on all zoning articles. Is that you? And so there was, planning director was there, and he sort of expressed what some of the concerns of the planning board were. And I'm not really sure how this will end up, but that was a good discussion too. Then we talked about these business improvement districts. And a business improvement district, commonly known as a BID, is a sort of a special taxing district where it would be a defined area, typically in a downtown, where the business owners are taxed a little bit more than anybody else, and that those funds go into a special account to fund particular improvements to the district. It might be more trash pickups. It might be beautifying the area. It might be doing handicap ramps. It might be something like that. There are 3 bids in Massachusetts, established bids. Hyannis has one of them, and there were a couple of other places. So there's a process through which the bid would be established, and it's initiated by business owners of a certain number and assessed property value, submitting a petition to the town.
Is this something that they want to do?
Well, Alan Bell was there, and he, I think, is I hope I get his title right, president of the Merchants Association, and he kind of was listening and expressed a little bit of pros and cons about it. We haven't been approached, to my knowledge, specifically by any group saying, hey, we really need a bid. But it's a tool that can be used to do specific types of improvements. So the question is, what improvements might be needed?
But wouldn't people say we're already paying our taxes? Why do we have to?
Well,
why should we
yes,
pay more?
I think there would be some of that. I think typically the improvements would be sort of above and beyond the normal types of improvements. Like in Hyannis, I'm trying to think, I'm not exactly certain where their bid is, but if it's like Main Street, Hyannis, I think they have hanging flower baskets and...
Oh, I see. Something that
maybe
just makes it snap a little better.
And to draw people to the area to shop and interact, and it's economically driven.
It's just something. I mean, is this seriously? Are we seriously looking?
Well,
at
I
this?
think the board just wanted to have an initial discussion about what is it? What does it do for us? And so they did have that discussion.
And who makes that decision? The Merchant Association?
Well, they would submit this petition, and then it would go to town meeting.
All right.
And there's a whole process. It talked about, before you even really get to as far as the petition, you should really have a planning process that takes place. We haven't had that. But there have been some discussions,
Might make sense to go over to Hyannis and see how they like it.
Right,
maybe I could take my camera over, we could find out if it became something.
If it became something serious.
Yeah.
So there was that discussion. And then we had yet another discussion about town office space options. There are 5 opinions on this on the board, and maybe there's 6, including mine. Some of them mesh, some of them are not the same. And at some point, the board is going to need to make a decision about what to put forward to town meeting about town office space. There was discussion about selling the town building. There was discussion about selling this 20 South Water Street building, which is the old police station right next door to the town building. There was discussion about constructing a very large administrative building at 2 Fairgrounds Road and moving all town offices there. There was discussion about renovating the town building and the 20 South Water Street building and moving all town offices downtown. There was talk about moving the courts somewhere else.
Everybody had a different kind of idea.
Almost, there was a little twist on everybody's idea.
What was your twist? What would you like to see?
Well, I don't want to hog the,
Hey,
thing.
you're still the town manager.
Well, what I said at the meeting was, I don't think the town should fund a new building for the courts. The courts are not a town function, they are a state function, and the state should fund that. But we already know that's not going to happen in the foreseeable future. So that it's just an issue. I think that we should stick with one of the original plans in the last few years, which was to renovate 20 South Water Street, move the finance offices there and the little ancillary offices such as human resources, and there's a couple of others, put them in that building, demolish the 37 Washington Street building, add parking. Maybe in the future we look at renovating the town building to potentially add more space for the courts, and there are some space issues in this building. proceed with constructing a plus building at 2 Fairgrounds Road. It wouldn't be in the same location that it is now. It'd be resited. Maybe it could be constructed in such a way that if additional administrative offices were to move out there at some point, the building could be, that could happen. So
But
those
selling
are my
this-
thoughts. I'm not
selling
wild
this
about
and-
the idea of selling the town building
And taking
or
the money and then
or the
leaving.
20 South Water Street building.
Yeah,
I think there should remain a town presence downtown.
agree.
Now, the issue of moving all the town offices here, finance and the plus offices, I think the issue with that is going to be parking and traffic. And if all of that traffic comes back downtown, it would probably be great in the winter and the fall and the spring.
Right.
But in the summer, it is not going to be great.
well, yeah, but I mean, how much building goes on in July and August anyway? I mean, they're all
Well,
here, they want to party and they're.
Good question. That it might be something to look at the traffic that goes out in and out of that building in those
Right.
months. Maybe it's not as bad as
It's
we
not.
think. But I think some additional accommodation would have to be made for parking downtown if all of those offices were to move back. And there was some discussion about angled parking on
I
Broad
know, that-
Street.
I was thinking about
That's
that.
intriguing.
That is.
I'm not sure if it would add that much more parking, maybe a little bit. But if this building and the 20 South Water Street building were completely renovated and maybe even rebuilt a little bit, not this building totally rebuilt, but maybe 20 South, and connected in a bigger complex, I think everybody probably could fit in here. And you might be able to do some accommodation for parking, particularly if we demolished 37 Washington and added parking down at the town lot.
Got it.
Maybe shuttle service would have to be increased. I don't know. So anyway, we're not done with the discussion, but that was how it went. At our meeting next week, we've got a big meeting next week. It's public hearing Wednesday. And we have got some other things besides public hearings. I'm going to skip all the consent items because those are pretty quick. The consent items on our agenda are things that the board doesn't really talk about. They're so routine that they just basically say, move to approve all the consent items, and they're approved. Our public hearings include 1, 2, 3 telephone petitions. And as I've explained before, telephone petitions are relocation of wires, installing handholds, electrical conduits and things that are required by law. The utilities need to have the Board of Selectmen approve them. They all seem to be customer oriented, customer driven. We have a public hearing to consider requests to renew and extend aquaculture licenses that are existing for people who have these leases in the head of the harbor and at Pacoma Meadows.
How many people are doing that? Do we know?
I want to say there's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but
Different forms of aquaculture, or is
Well,
it pretty much all?
that's a good
Shellfish.
question. I think it's all shellfish. Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
shellfish.
right. Oysters or.
Oysters or something else.
Okay.
I really ought to know more about that, but I don't have it at the tip of my fingers.
Right.
We're going to have a public hearing to consider the warrant articles that are in the warrant that seek to amend the town and the Sconset sewer districts. According to the Nantucket Sewer Act, which is special legislation for Nantucket regarding sewer issues, there needs to be a public hearing for the board to consider extending or modifying these districts. And we have an administrative work group that makes some recommendations to the board about whether or not the parcels proposed to be added or removed are appropriate. And there's a criteria checklist that they use to do that. So we're going to have a hearing on that. We have some applications for licensure for a new business at 7 Old South Wharf. It's going to be called Table Number 1. And they are seeking a common victualler license, an entertainment license, and a seasonal wine and malt
Really?
package store license.
Where is that going?
7 Old South Wharf.
So maybe where the 7 Old South. So it's, yeah, I know where those shops are, but
It's,
the only place that had food there was Bartlett's, right? You don't know which one it is.
I don't know which one
All
it
right,
is,
all right.
but it's down there somewhere.
All right.
But the entertainment license, just so people know, is only for radio, CD
Okay.
and radio.
Okay.
we have a continuation of 2 public hearings. One is for the transfer of a liquor license, annual wine and malt package store, for the Trading Post, Nantucket Trading Post on Nobodere Farm Road. And an application from Millie's to alter its premises, and this has to do with the removal, I think the removal of a bar and seating, or maybe it's adding a bar and seating, I can't remember, it's something sort of minor. And then we've got the everybody's favorite topic, which is second quarter financial reports for the fiscal year 15 of the Sewer Enterprise Fund and the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. Then, as if that wasn't exciting enough, we're going to be reviewing their fiscal 16 proposed budgets. I know you love it.
I hope that's at the end of the night.
You love it when those things come up. It's close to the end. It's not totally at the end. We're going to be talking about event fees. The board, a few meetings ago, talked about increasing some event fees, and there were a couple of, and which they did, but there were a couple of categories that they wanted us to look more at. So we're going to bring that information back to them. We're going to be reviewing costs of storm damage and funding options. The primary project here is the town pier. The town pier, as if people possibly don't know, was virtually wrecked in the January storm, and we need to get it fixed up for the summer. Repaired, rebuilt, call it what you want.
Yeah.
And the estimate for that is about $1.2 million. So hopefully a good portion of that will be reimbursed from the federal government. Insurance proceeds are going to be limited to none because you can't get this type of insurance coverage for a town pier. And anyway, we're probably going to ultimately, to get to the bottom line here, be recommending the use of free cash to fund this, and then hopefully we'll get reimbursed at a later time because we got to get this underway. We're also going to have an update about additional NRTA shuttle service costs, and we had a discussion about this.
Because we may run the shuttle later.
A little bit later at night during the season, so
yeah.
We've talked about that. And that's mostly what we're doing next week. There might be a couple of other things that aren't on here yet because we're still working on the agenda. And maybe another storm, Gino.
Oh, come on, not tonight though.
No,
Yeah.
but over the weekend.
Oh, okay.
That's
Because
what I heard.
we've been trying to do our basketball, our sports,
Oh,
and
right.
they just can't.
They just keep canceling?
They keep canceling.
Nobody wants to come here when there's going to be a
Oh, I
storm.
don't blame
They don't
them.
want to get stuck here.
Yeah.
There's
It's been rough. It's been a rough winter.
I know. It has been a rough one.
Wow.
Tell me about it.
Everybody's
Yeah, I know.
writing me, emailing me. How are you doing up there? You
Oh,
know?
really?
Oh,
Well,
it's
but-
all over the world. They're talking about.
But we're nothing compared to Maine,
Oh,
where you were in
You
Maine.
saw that, right? Is
Was
that
Harry standing on top of your house?
Yes,
By a snowbank?
he was, and I mean it was probably about 15 feet high, the snow. So
Is that the first time you'd been up there?
there's a picture of it right there. That's Harry on top of the.
You must have had a good time
And
scrambling up there.
that gives you more perspective of it right there. Yeah, I completely snowed in. Couldn't even plow the driveway.
Wow.
They couldn't even plow the driveway, so you had to park down at the bottom of the hill and walk in.
Do you have snowshoes?
No, I wish.
You need to get some snowshoes.
I know it.
Or some skis or something. I don't know.
Crazy. It's beautiful though. It really is. It's,
I bet.
In a way, it's really beautiful.
Did you get it all off your roof? You don't want to
I got it
sit
off
around
the
on the
roof.
roof.
I mean, I did. I got it all
Yeah,
off. Thank God.
yeah, I know. All right, what else?
That's it.
3-day weekend. Yes. All right. Thanks very much. See you next time.